Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Blood Wave is real strong, y'all. Really strong. Like, just about as exactly as strong as I thought it was going to be, but kind of really strong. So for the context of the footage that you're currently looking at, I'm generally taking a benchmark approach to the typical progression that I expect players are going to be having walking into Season 6 and trying to pilot their favorite Necromancer builds. So what you're currently looking at is a character that's basically airmarked for Torment level 2. Now, Torment's going to get significantly harder than that, and by significantly harder, I mean a measly amount of harder. I think most builds are going to be speed farming tier 4, unironically, unless they're pure trash. But the gear that you're currently looking at, the setup that you're looking at, the aspects, the powers, the lack of rune words, the lack of mercenaries, no greater affix gear, no ancestral powers, no tempers, no relevant stats on my gear other than armor and resistance caps, in a tier 38 dungeon, which is higher than what you need to be able to bump into Torment 2. And what you're looking at is Blood Wave. You know, the build that like kind of got fairly decently powerful in Season 4, and Season 5 got a little bit stronger. And then in Season 6, they decided to give it an aspect that basically multiplies its damage by like 5 or 6 times over, whereas before it had reduced your damage per additional wave that shot out. That's right, title now basically says at max power. Your first Blood Wave does 100% damage, your next Blood Wave does 240% damage, and then your third Blood Wave also does 240% damage. So whereas before you basically got a 2 times multiplier out of all 3 of the waves hitting, you're now doing a whopping 5.8 times damage just from this aspect. Now, the funny part about all of this, again, is that there are no tempers on my gear. This is not Blood Wave deals double damage. There's no overpower tempers. There's no blood attack speed. There's nothing to solve like resource issues. There's no movement speed on this thing. And it's kind of just deleting everything without caring, because they also went and slapped on 20% damage reduction to the base skill and basically gave it a ton of additional power in the skill tree that it didn't have access to previously. In fact, I think you can mostly drop the addition of Ultimate Shadow, which used to get you access to multiple multipliers that you would use in your Paragon board as well as in your skill tree, because you just don't need it anymore. You just click the overpower button and then you hold down Bloodlance to eat up all the orbs to click the overpower button again. It's really that simple. Now, coming back there from the video footage just really quickly, because I do need to touch on this, I realized that I had messed up when I walked into this benchmark run of a tier 38 pit, because I had just been playing a summon Necromancer build. And to that end, I currently had 3 Paragon boards, so 100 points spent. Just trying to get an idea, again, of like, how many Paragon points would you have at this point? I don't really know. Maybe like 60, maybe 80, maybe 100 if you've done all of your renown. But a keen, sharp-eyed eagle like you will notice that we're currently using a hulking monstrosity, a eliminator. Actually, this one is activated, so like shoutouts to me for my 10% damage bonus here. But cult leader, dead razor, and a control glyph. That's right, I just left the Paragon board on from my minion setup. This doesn't have the 50% damage multiplier from Blood Begets Blood, which has 100% uptime, or the 70% damage multiplier from Bloodbath for every single time that you overpower, which is 100% of the time. We're losing out on literally more than double damage, and that doesn't even include the glyphs that you would normally run, or the maximum life you would typically pick up, or the overpower additive, etc., etc. And just for people who haven't seen my most recent video where I kind of did a state of the Necromancer, very in the style of how Raxantarax, my boy Ryan, does his like state of Diablo 4 type videos. I wanted to try to bring a little bit of that style to it, so shouts to him for the inspiration. But the gear that I'm using has bad stats on them, like core stat and max life and armor and res. And you're going to see this across the board. None of this gear is airmarked for a blood build. I guess I put on a 2-handed weapon, which inherently comes along with some overpower damage, but that essence on kill was sure helping to propel me through all of this. No, what you're looking at is just stats on the gear required to hit the caps for survivability. So I'm mostly res capped. I'm kind of almost armor capped. And then I just put on the aspects, which again, I haven't even found the 5-tier stronger versions of them that can drop now that I'm in Torment for any of the things that I just put on. There's one stat on here that says critical strike chance, and that like very slightly increased my damage. All that being said though, I already have a fully theory crafted planner on the Maxroll D4 build planner for Blood Wave. So I just want to like very quickly show you that to everybody in case you don't know where to find those. But in my Discord, which is in the description below, it always is. If you haven't come and hung out there, like come and hang out. We need y'all. I would love to see you here. But we already have Shadow Surfer. I currently have it named Shadow Surfer because that's what I've been calling it in the past, and I just kind of like that name. But what I've already built out for this is kind of the idea of what I expect gear to look like in Penitent difficulty, although I don't think you'll really be masterworking at that point. What I expect it to look like in the end game before you add on any mythics, etc. And then the mythics that I expect to be able to put onto the build. So the things here, I already have a fully built out skill tree for all of this. I already have a fully built out 228 point Paragon. This is basically assuming that nobody will get maximum Paragon points. So I can't really just tell you like, hey, here's how to spend all of them. Obviously, we would fill out the rest of this once we get a better idea of just how hard it is to find every single Paragon point, like to fully level up all the way. But this is assuming that you have gotten like the base like 200, you've gotten the ones from Renown as well. And I think this build is going to be like kind of disgustingly good. From what I hear, Ruse Cruise from Goblin Inc. was already kind of testing this out on one of their characters that already had gear brought over to the PTR, and they're hitting like in the billions, which is crazy because that's a big number. But yeah, Blood Wave, absolutely cracked out of its gourd. But yeah, just kind of whipped it together. Book of the Dead, some crit chance, some overpower damage, some crit damage. I don't even know how much crit chance we actually currently have. What are we looking at? Not bad. 50% crit chance is pretty decent. That's what you get from tossing on Sacrificial. But just like that build planner in the Discord, I'll also have it down in the description below. But the skill tree is like pretty straightforward. You're just generally trying to proc Bloodlance as cheaply as possible just to pick up blood orbs from Gorequill's aspect, make some corpses. Now that I look back at it, I don't know what I'm doing with these corpses, but like they're there, so that's cool. I'm using them for corpse tendrils. GG, good job me, I remembered. But being able to generate barrier for free helps with maintaining fortified status. Fortified status gets us damage to elites. I personally need the spiked armor to get close to armor cap right now. We are using Cursed Aura, which is just basically making it so that we don't have to worry about essence generation, since we don't have any tools in our affixes for generating essence. But it's automatically applying Decrepify with Abhorrent. That's not really increasing the rate at which we can cast Blood Wave so much, maybe a little bit against a boss, but it's more so making it so that like Corpse Tendrils and Blood Mist is off of cooldown as fast as possible, so we always have access to them. Free cost for Enhanced Iron Maiden, just be able to generate essence whenever Cursed Aura procs on a new target. A little bit of damage, basically maxing out the blood tree here. I don't know how much healing percent we're going to need based off of our current maximum life to be able to proc Rathmas off of a single blood orb. I'll sit down and do the math at some point, but Corpse Tendrils generate more blood orbs, maxing out Blood Wave. Look at how much damage scaling the base skill has, and this is without additional skill ranks. It's absolutely bananas. More damage after casting an ult, we're always casting our ult, more DR, more sacrifice bonuses, more crit chance, Rathmas obviously to wrap it all up. But yeah, build's cracked. Definitely is outscaling any of the other builds that I've run on this, although it's a little bit slow just because the stats on my gear aren't particularly great. But the funny part about it is that it felt slow only because I was killing the packs so fast that like there was just a lot of downtime in between them, as opposed to the other builds where I kind of felt like I was fighting monsters for longer. So I felt like there was less downtime in the actual pit run itself. It's weird how your brain like reconceptualizes fast and slow depending on the outcome. Great build. If you've never played it before, I think that the PTR is probably your best place just to get a sense of it, because I definitely think that this thing is going to be, oh boy, it's so hard to say. I think that Blood Wave will be seriously competing for some of the top spots in whatever the meta looks like, if only inside of the class of the Necromancer, because obviously like we're just slower than everybody else. But great AoE, great crowd control, great survivability now that it has DR, and now that we're able to like freely generate barrier without needing alternative sources. So no temerity nonsense, you'll just be able to run Blood Moon Breaches for a huge multi as well. This thing's cracked. It's cracked out of its gourd, and I'm so here for it. We've been waiting for a very, very, very long time for Blood Wave to be a good build, and it kind of already was. It just really didn't hit other people's radar just because it's like, I don't know, it's slightly difficult for people to understand how to wrap their head around it or how to make it work. But once you do, it feels really smooth. But there you go. Like I said, down in the description, you can check out the planner. Again, check into the Discord. I'm maintaining all of my Season 6 PTR builds. So I already have Bone Spirit, Sever, Blight, Soul Rift. I have a version of Soul Rift. That thing's going to be nutty once I drop the helmet and actually show it off in game. And then this one as well. So go check them out there. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hope that you found it entertaining. And as always, I look forward to seeing you in the next one.